Hey everyone, it's Karen. I am the Executive Director of Stand Up California, and I'd like to welcome you back to our Stand Up and Take Action series. I'm really excited today because we have an awesome organization with us. Stand Up California is a proud partner through the Convention on Health Rights, and I volunteered for them several times, and I continue to be wowed by everything that they do since I've met them. Educate.Advocate is California's statewide nonprofit 501c3 organization that serves families with exceptional needs. Which, by the way, I'm just going to say, if you or yourself or anyone you know is seeking resources or help with anything IEP related, which is an individualized education plan, there's no other organization I'd recommend in California other than Educate.Advocate. Educate.Advocate was founded in 2010. Whew, that's a lot of advocacy years. Educate.Advocate, their mission is to, number one, assist and provide support to anyone with or connected to someone with special needs and or disabilities at any age. Number two, a website providing resources with materials useful for families with special needs. Number three, to provide referrals to low-cost advocacy providers. This is a big one for a lot of my Latino families that I know. Number four, to have special needs family-friendly events. All events are open to all, regardless of severity of disabilities, special needs, or disability. We encourage inclusion. I love that. And at the end, we will talk about a very special event coming up in December. So keep watching so that you get all the details. And number five, to educate our communities of the potential environmental triggers which may hinder the healing of persons with disabilities and special needs. So without further ado, thank you so much, Kristie from Educate.Advocate. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me, Karen.
It's always an honor to speak to you. So I've introduced the organization. I've talked a little bit about, the mission, but I'd like to have you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of you, and of course a staple question that is going to be very normalized here: what your favorite ice cream is.
Okay, so I'm Kristie Sepulveda-Burchett, and how Educate.Advocate was founded was through a group of parents that were getting together to talk about advocacy related issues with all of our children. So everybody who is on the board of Educate.Advocate since its foundation has had children who have special needs, or they in fact have had special needs themselves, adult parents who have special needs. So that's how we all got together and got started, and we just kind of went full force from the beginning. Going up and asking for public records from school districts, and just from regional centers, going to board meetings and filming them and putting them on YouTube, going back way then. And that was one of the big reasons that many of the institutions started doing their own YouTube channels and making sure it was filmed. But of course, when we would go to meetings, we would be right up front, and we would be filming the board members. Their video was way in the back. Like, I'm just thinking of my regional center, way in the back. Wasn't on the regional center board members. So just trying to have transparency and accountability, and making sure that funding that was going to these providers for services and supports for those with disabilities would actually go to them and not to litigation purposes. That was really a big foundation for why we got started. And then in 2011, so it was just a year later, was one of the first bills that we got involved with. Actually, we got involved with another bill that didn't have anything to do with the vaccine issue, but prior to that. But at that point, we got involved with it was Assembly Member Toni Atkins' bill at the time. She was the Assembly member, involving minor consent. So opposing that. And then soon after, very soon after, was Assemblymember Pan's bill, involving essentially trying to require a doctor to sign a personal belief exemption. So that was kind of the first step that he took with a bill that started to erode the personal belief exemption. So we did. You can see us on the record. We opposed that bill. So that's kind of how we got our start into this layer with Educate.Advocate. But we have a lot of different layers in helping families over the years. And again, the reason that I personally got involved, the reason that this is a passion for me, is being impacted with having a son with special needs, you know, and being involved with vaccine injury. And many of the parents that come to us and that are on our board have vaccine injured children who are children with disabilities or special needs as well. So that's how we all got together, and that was how I started in this whole entire road.
Wow. I would just like to say, and I do know you, and you are an amazing mom. You are absolutely an inspiration to me. So, with that being said, you didn't let us know what your favorite ice cream is.
That's right. Mint chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip. That's a good one. I approve. We approve. State of California approves.
That's a good one.
I'd like to back up a little bit and just first of all say that I got involved as well, as many parents that I know, in 2015, 2019, because our children have been injured. And in my personal case, we went through a lot of therapy and just, getting her better, which I'm very thankful and blessed that, she's doing a lot better than when we started. And I got to know what a regional center was and the resources they offer to families. But something that that I talked about that could include, and I got to know what an IEP was because of the regional center referral, is an IEP. So what could you give us a little roadmap of what an IEP is and the importance of an IEP to a family who has a child with exceptional needs?
Oh, definitely. So an individualized education program is an IEP, and essentially it can start at age 3 up through your school, like, your history with school. And you have to qualify for it. So they do a battery of assessments, and they determine whether or not you qualify for an IEP. In that IEP is listed all the services and supports that the student would receive. And a student can be in general education and have, services alongside that, either within, where it's a pull in, so they come inside the classroom and they do those services right there and then within the classroom. And that's even can be great because sometimes the other students are benefiting from that. Or it can be a pull out, where they go out to another area and they do their therapies or their services, whatever those services are. And that can either last through, if they graduate from high school, whatever age that is, or through age 22. Prior to that, there also is regional center, which is a unique thing in California only. We have regional centers. We have regional centers throughout the state, and they provide services from infancy, and also again through life. But there's periods of transition as you go through regional center. So there's like early start, which is, first, that's babies through age 3, and then they transition and it's school aged, and then they do another transition, and then they do transition as they become adults and elderly. It's through the entire lifespan. And it's a whole other sect that you can, so when outside of school, there's also regional center where you can get services and supports that way too. We have other services as well that those who have disabilities can get. There's other service areas, Social Security, getting Medi-Cal, which is just called Medicaid throughout the country, but in California, it's called Medi-Cal. IHSS, which is in-home supportive services. So like I said, there's a variety of services that a person with disabilities, it just kind of depends on the level of functioning that they would be able, if it's appropriate to get those types of services. So and that's primarily something that we help families with, all of these different services. So does that kind of explain it for you?
Yes.
Okay.
And later on, we will tell you guys where you can find Kristie and where you can request if you need help, seeking these resources or more information on IEP. So you kind of went through some of the things that Educate.Advocate offers families with exceptional needs, but what would you say is the most highly requested resource or the number one question Educate.Advocate receives from California families?
Well, because we are essentially the only organization that really handles the issues that came about because of SB 277 and families on an IEP, I would say that is probably the questions that come in the most for us overall. I mean, we get a variety of other questions involving the other services that I listed out. But I would say because we're it. I mean, there's not really, yes, you could potentially find some attorneys. There are a few attorneys that I know, but but outside of asking a couple of brief questions to them, that might be no cost. It's going to be very expensive to, get their help and their services because they cost money. They're an attorney. We don't charge people for giving advice on this issue. We have resources on our website, including a template, making it easy. And that's the number one way that we refer people is just, peruse the website, the page that goes over this information, utilize the template. And if you're still having trouble, then definitely get in touch. And for the most part, most of the districts will, that's good enough. But there are some that are, even till this day, I mean, when did that bill pass? In 2015, and here we are in 2023, and we're still having issues. It would be really nice, and one of our advocates is trying. It would be really nice if the California Department of Education would put out some guidance. As you can see, when you go to the Educate.Advocate website under the SB 277 IEP page, you can see all of what they're called compliance complaints, and it's an investigative report. There is not one compliance complaint investigation report that shows anybody but the student being successful on this issue. The school district is always told, no, you need to allow them their education, their services and supports, regardless of their vaccination, immunization status. So it's like it's an answered question, but still it would be a lot easier if the California Department of Education would put out guidance on this issue. We're hoping they will. I mean, it's been a long time and we're still having to push back on this. And I try to keep it updated. There's a lot of compliance complaints on there. I have one I actually need to add that just came through over the Thanksgiving time period. So I haven't had a chance to put it on, but they're all exhaustive of the student, finding in favor of the student, essentially. There's no monetary, damages or anything that they can receive. It's just the school district letting the school district know, basically California Department of Education is letting them know for this case specifically, for this child specifically, that you need to continue to provide their education supports and services, regardless of their vaccination status. So, and even some school districts have appealed it with the California Department, and we've put all that information as well. They've appealed it, and they've still been told, no, you need to provide the education supports and services. So we try to post them there so that everybody will see, and hopefully that would be successful too. And it's a model for families to utilize when if and when they need to do their own compliance complaint on the issue, if the school district proceeds to continue to try to push back and all of that. So that's probably the number one area, because unfortunately, you would think year after year that we would get less and less with less problems, but it doesn't. And sometimes some of the school districts are saying things that are blatantly untrue, or even like threats, like kind of threats of, well, we could give them their services, but they won't be able to come to school and go to the general education class, things like that, to kind of scare the parents. And I mean, I know I can see with their perspective, what they're trying to do is scare them into going and doing it, right? Which they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be acting that way. It's really immoral for the school
Yes.
district to be saying those kinds of things to these parents, and especially the parents who have the most issues and trouble are the ones who have younger kids who didn't know anything about this, and are kind of thrust upon this life, or even sometimes the parents who are going to possibly put their kids in private school, looking to private school potentially as an issue, and don't really know how to navigate that. So I try to talk to them through, and other advocates here try to talk them through how they can proceed and try to make it work for their family.
And this is why I personally, as a mom and an advocate, I mean, I've only been in it since 2019, but it's really important to know what organizations will give you the right guidance,
Right.
and be part of the organization, be involved with the organization, and knowledge is power. I think if we guided more people to the right information, the right advocate, the right organization, they would feel empowered to know, that this isn't the way it has to be. Because even in recent years, just since, CV started, we've seen how the school districts want to do things their own way. And sometimes it's like you said, it's immoral, it's unjust, it's segregating. They're segregating children because of their back status, and that shouldn't be the way. And this is why I'm always very thankful that you guys are always there supporting the families. And if you, who is any of you guys who are watching today, know somebody that speaks Spanish, and they might think I don't understand anything, or it's a lot scarier, I think, for our Spanish speaking families, and it's a little bit more overwhelming, I think, coming at me as a Latina. But you guys do offer those services in Spanish, and you guys have great volunteers that speak the language, that are able to call them and speak to them, and let them know what's going on.
Definitely. And that's important.
Yes.
And Karen is one of them.
I will give you a call. Absolutely. I'd like to switch gears for a little bit. So we just wrapped up a legislative session in 2023. Woof, it
Yeah.
felt like a long one, even though, there was AB 659, which is a bill that we poured a lot of our energy into. And going back to school districts real quick, just everybody that's watching, the HPV vax is not required. So the language it does not have it required, but they will be sending out a letter to children at the sixth grade level that states, right, that they encourage, they recommend it. So if you know anybody with children in that age range, let them know that it's not something that is required for them to go into 8th grade. But anyway, Educate.Advocate, you guys were busy this legislative session in other ways. So you guys sponsored 3 bills. 2 out of the 3 were signed into law by Governor Newsom, which is huge. Congratulations.
Yes.
I would like for you to walk us through those 2 bills that were signed into law. And for those of you who may not know, when an organization sponsors a bill, if you can walk us through what that looks like as well, and what that is.
Definitely. So the 2 bills that were signed were both authored by Assemblymember Weber, and one was AB 1466, which was the Pupil Discipline, Restraint, Seclusion, Reporting Bill, and the other one was a parental notification bill that passed the only parental notification bill that passed, AB 611, which involved non-public schools. The history on this was these two bills, we had an author on board for 2020, which was Assemblymember Weber's mom, who's secretary, Assemblymember Shirley Weber. And then when COVID happened, all the bills were dropped. So we started up again because now the kids had been back in school, and there had been a period of time, because we could have potentially tried to do this the legislative session before this, but it was like, well, let's wait a little bit because we need to, have the kids back in school, because both of these bills are kind of more relevant to that, the kids actually being in school. So the restraint bill was simply this data through a previous bill that Assemblymember Shirley Weber had done. Each school district is already required to provide annually a report to go to the California Department of Education on their numbers as far as restraint and seclusion. So if there's any restraining of students, and many times it can be minority students, and those are the higher numbers, and those with disabilities. So it's very important information. Problem is, you go to California Department of Education website to try to look at these numbers and this data, and it's just overwhelming. You can't really read through it. So the purpose of this bill was pretty simple, just the information that the school district sends to the state for them to put it on their own website, so that a family can just go to their own school district's website and see it specifically for their school district. It'll still be for all the districts on the California Department of Education website and information there. But if you just want to see for your own school district, you can just see it there. So it's very simple. And I don't think there was any opposition. No school district is opposed. I mean, they already have to do this report. So it's just a matter of putting it on their own school district website. The other one involving non-public schools came about as a result of a death of a student in a non-public school, which a non-public school is specifically for students who might have some more severe issues. So many times it could be students who have behavior issues and things like that, right? Not necessarily, that doesn't mean that that's all of that would be that population, but there might be more so than just the general education setting. So this particular bill it was found out that there was multiple incidents of this particular non-public school restraining the students there. And their what is it called? Their status had already kind of went down to, it's almost like they were on probation. They weren't on probation, but there was like a conditional. So because they had so many outstanding things going on with restraint. And so ultimately this death happened because they restrained the student. So the point of this bill was pretty simple as well. But it hadn't been done before. But I kind of thought about it. I brainstormed about it. This was my baby. This is really important to me. So it essentially is, if the status changes of a non-public school, then the parent has to be notified. So the district needs to send notification. The district will receive notification if the status changes, if it moves from approved to conditional. And then of course, if it goes to they're being denied, that would be a different story. But anytime it goes down to conditional because there's incidents or anything going on, instantly the parents need to know. The parents and guardians need to know what's going on so that they can look into it and make their own decision. And hopefully the school district could also be on alert more so now, because they're alerting the parent about, is this the placement? Is this a good placement? And maybe I need to do some more visits to the school, because you do have that right as a parent to go and observe, where your student is, the placement. So maybe I need to be doing that more to make sure that things are going okay at school. So this was just an idea a bill idea from a couple of years before, and I'm really pleased that it went through. It again, it didn't face any opposition. There was widespread support on both of these bills. So very happy with this last, and Assemblymember Weber was great to work with. Her staff was great. That's a key part of all of this, is honestly is finding the staff who's willing and wants to work with you, because look, the assembly members and the senators, they will last a certain period of time. They have a certain period that they can be there, but many of these staffers will last years and decades into this. So it is vital, more so, in my opinion, more so than anything else, that you establish good relationships with the staffers that are there. And they move around too. Mm-hmm. So, they get promoted, they go here, they go there. So it's like you need to have good relationships with all the staffers, and always trying to, that's really important. As far as the trajectory of how this all works, right about now is when you would be wanting to start up, maybe in November, maybe in December. If you had bill ideas, going and talking, you don't have to necessarily go. You could do a Zoom meeting with staffers, and kind of, if you had ideas, you could share them with staffers. If it was bills like the ones that I just laid out for you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need a certain party legislator to do that, to introduce it. But I will say, if you're going to have a more controversial topic issue, and this is just not just limited to the vaccine issue, but there's other topics too that we've had to deal with the past couple of legislative seasons. If you have a Republican, I'm sorry to say, but if you have a Republican introduce it, it's kind of a non-starter, unfortunately, because they're not just a minority, they're just like really, really a minority, right? So,
and this is the real raw truth, because this is something that I've learned from you, from Christina, from A Voice for Truth Advocacy, from Valerie. It's important to really balance that out, because we do live in a super majority state. Yeah. And both the Assembly and the Senate, the majority is Democrat. Don't go to Senator Wiener's office and expect him to pick up your bill, but there are other legislators that
on these kinds of topics. Yeah. So like, for instance, for us, the two bills I just outlined, right? I could have gone to a Senator Wiener, and potentially, if special education was something that I felt he was really, for instance, Senator Pan, even though he really wouldn't take a meeting with most outside of his districts, and definitely not Educate.Advocate, because, we had been opposing his bill since the start, but he was very invested and beloved by many organizations in the special needs world, the disability world. So, potentially if Educate.Advocate had never opposed his bill, his first bill, like, he's one I could have gone to, and he probably would pick up these kinds of bills. So it just kind of varies. But if it's a controversial type of topic, but some might argue with me and say, that it's just important to get the bill in there, right? But I don't see it that way, because I feel like you're really missing an opportunity to actually get it across the finish line. Like, what is your goal? If your goal is just to get that notoriety of, oh, we got a bill in, but nothing else, and then people what donate to you, I don't know what the purpose would be, but it's really not going to go anywhere, because it's not going to go through to the finish line at all. Then I want results. I want there to
solution based.
Yeah.
Solution based thoughts.
I just wouldn't agree that would be something you should do. So, like I said, going there, and also who you're speaking with, you want to speak in a language that they understand. You want to dress in a way that is appropriate. So, if you are highly affiliated with a certain political party or whatever, and you go in that garb, and then you're trying to have common ground type of conversation with a person who's a Democrat, for instance, that it's going to be difficult. So,
And this is coming from a person, because this was one of my questions. Kristie has met with Democrat legislators that are very hard to get an in-person meeting. I've seen the photos. And I'm like, how does she do it? But I've learned a lot, because you're not going to go in there wearing, a certain garment you're going to stick out like a sore thumb that you represent another party. That to me, if I was a legislator, that it's argumentative. You're coming into my space with like a
right.
mindset that's set, and conversation is good. That's how solutions are brought up, through conversation. And like you said, talking to them at a human level.
Right. And it opens the door. So, there's a number of experiences that we've had over the years in dealing with a lot of these vaccine bills, for instance, where it was a foot in the door with staffers, where we've had this relationship, and so that we could get in the door to talk to them about these kinds of bills, and they would listen to our perspective, because much of our perspective covers the angle that a lot of people aren't covering, which is, students who have disabilities and students who have vaccine injury, and kind of coming at it from that perspective, as opposed to other ways that people have approached it in the past. Or, just like I just said, going in there and speaking in such a way that would not repel them, but actually, find that common ground that you can find in speaking to them. And we've done some events, and Karen's hosted us to do some town halls where we've kind of gone over this in great detail. And I'm sure we'll do it again for the next legislative season, because this is not something that's ending anytime soon. but so you'll get some tips. So be sure to check the ones from the past out, and I'm sure the one upcoming as we head into 2024 as well.
Yes, absolutely. And you can find them on I think the last one we have on the Stand Up California YouTube channel. So Kristie, in your experience, and I'm going to say this because, again, this is something that I've learned from you. Stand Up California does it. Educate.Advocate does it. CHCA does it. A Voice for Choice Advocacy does it. We talk about, the supporting of the bills and finding common ground with the legislators, because you build a rapport. And in your experience, why, and your personal thoughts to you, why is it important to build these relationships, sustain these relationships with? We heard that from you that the staffers are the gatekeepers to the legislators. We want to build those relationships. But aside from them being, there for a very long time, why is it important to sustain these relationships?
Oh, definitely, because ultimately we would like these legislators to potentially support the bills that we need them to support and pick up, and then also to oppose the bills. Now, the problem is with our movement overall is that we're always so focused on getting them to oppose these bad bills, right? Which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, it's like it's very difficult to find that common ground if you're never trying to get them to support the good bills, or even supporting their good bills. Because some of these legislators that many of us, have a strong issues with over the years, they have some good bills too. They're not all necessarily all 100% bad. I challenge people, go through their bills, all these people that you have issue with, and I'm sure there'll be at least one that you like, and maybe consider supporting that one. Send in your letter of support, because it starts with us trying to support the good stuff, and not always everything's black and white. This person is evil and bad, and this person is good and pure. I think that it's very important, especially if our hope, many of the organizations that we are working really closely with, especially the ones that are trying to get legislation in, specifically a Voice for Choice advocacy and California Health Coalition advocacy, as well as Educate.Advocate. Those are the 3 organizations that actually are active getting legislation in. All 3 organizations have had bills in that have had bills being taken up. And so, our hope, all 3 of our organizations' hope, is that we can get legislators to bring forward the types of bills that we've been trying to get forward that would change things on a really grand scale. But we do need to start at a different place where we're starting on bills that are not as controversial necessarily. That doesn't mean that we're not trying to get those other bill ideas picked up, but it's not like it's an easy thing. It's just unfortunately not, because of the makeup that we have, and there's not necessarily any legislators currently on board that want to make this their passion. You really need a legislator who is very passionate about this, topic, as far as vaccines or exemptions or that kind of thing. You would really need a legislator, and it would need to be from the Democrat Party, that would be really passionate about this topic. And I say that not to diss on the Republicans or anything like that. It's just, once again, I just want to draw the fact that we have a very, very small minority of Republicans in our legislative, offices on both the Assembly and Senate side. And we also have a Democrat governor as well. So that's kind of where the trifecta is in the, Oregon is like different. So if in Oregon, the makeup is that if the Republicans don't show up, and this is what they have done strategically, they can't pass something. So they have stayed home, right? So that works really well there. I wish that would be the case in California, but it's not the case in California. So that's kind of what we're having to deal with here, unfortunately.
And something else that just came to mind that we've talked about, Stand Up California, Educate.Advocate, with advocacy, CA, is to also get to know your local legislator. And I just thought about, the relationship that I've built with my new, so redistricting happened. A lot of us got new assembly member, senator, but I quickly built that relationship, at least with my assembly member and her staffer, who's great. And when I, brought up AB 659 from the beginning, and I think this was like early in February, March, maybe, when I first met them, right away they said yes, we agree, and it's a Dem, and the vote continued to be no throughout. And you find out what, the common ground, like you said, and you talk to them, and they will see it through a different perspective, because you're not just, what I'd like to say, hounding them over and over and over with the negative. You're talking to them. And I would just like to encourage everybody to think outside the box, because we do need solutions. And we need solutions that are going to be in a very Dem ward, that will provide equity for all of the children, and not just, one side. Well,
that's a big reason that Stand Up California is so important, because you're helping to get everybody involved on that local level, the county and all these districts and all of that. So definitely refer to Stand Up California for all of that, and the emails that are sent out, because that's very important. The local level is where it's at. I mean, that's really where
thank you, Kristie.
Very important.
Thank you for that shout out, which
Definitely.
I should have opened with, if you haven't already registered for your local county, Stand Up California County, please visit our website, Stand Up California. Visit us on Instagram if you're not already following us, because we do send out weekly emails with when your board of supervisors are meeting, local legislative updates, and I've had so much fun getting to know the counties on a local level. And also, I lost my train of thought. It was a really good one too, but if it comes back, I will say it. So Thank you, Kristie, again for everything you do, for everything Educate Advocate does for our families. I want to leave on a happy note. I mean, I don't think we've talked about anything negative, but can you share a little bit about the Caring Santa holiday event happening
Oh, definitely.
this weekend?
Oh, before I move to that, I just wanted to say that we had a third bill, and that was
Oh, that's right. Yes.
445. And that's the IEP Translation Services Bill. Now, this bill, just so everybody knows, is a 2-year bill. So we'll need you guys to support it as we go into 2024. So it's a great bill. It's just getting translation services for an IEP and the documents surrounding it for those who speak other languages other than English. Many times they're not getting, for instance, their IEP document 4 months, like 6 months. And how are you supposed to get things going for your student when it's half the year? Because an IEP lasts a year. So it's half the year that you're not getting it. So it's a very important bill. It faced widespread support. We didn't have any opposition from any organizations and legislators. This bill has come up a few times. It's been vetoed by both Governor Brown and by Governor Newsom. And so like I said, the legislators all supported it. Problem is, it's an expensive type of bill. And so that's going to be the stickler. And that was the stickler for this. It'll be a stickler for this coming legislative season as well. So we'll see what happens there, but just wanted to give you everybody a heads up. That's SB 445. And then on to Caring Santa. So every year we do an event with Santa, who comes and takes pictures with families, the kids and families and whoever wants to. It's in Oak Glen. And for us, it's going to be Saturday, the 2nd of December this year at noon in Oak Glen. And it's in a beautiful place called the Children's Forest, just appropriately named.
Sounds magical.
With like Christmas trees all around. And, you know, our Santa is really caring with the kids and not, you know, you've seen some of the Santas in the past, they might be aggressive or not understand the kids or whatever. Our Santa isn't, and that's because I know him. I'm not going to give any hints what I mean by that. But
she just means that she went to the North Pole and picked out the Santa to come.
Exactly. So it's a lot of fun. And then it's a beautiful area to walk. If nobody's ever been, it's a beautiful area to walk. So we walk after, and we all just set off. And if people can't do, because there's a steeper part of the walk, people can't do that part, we just tell them, hey, go up by the pond. It's wheelchair accessible. You can walk around up there with the wheelchair around the pond area, and then we'll just hang out and we'll meet you up there. There's lots to see up there. So some people choose to do that, and then we meet up with them when we get up there. So it'll be a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So again, that's December 2nd, and I will go ahead and add all of the details below.
Okay.
And it's in Oak Glen, not Oakland.
Yes. Yeah.
When I first heard Oakland, not here, but I was like, oh, Oakland, and I had to re-listen. So where can they find you? Instagram, your website, X, formerly known as Twitter, which I don't know. I feel like X has been X for a while, and we've gotten in the habit of saying formerly known as Twitter. But give us all of your socials and your website, Kristie.
Yeah, so we're on Facebook and X. I was going to say Twitter because I always say Twitter still. Instagram and Telegram. And we're all under Educate.Advocate on all those places. And our website is Educate.Advocate, CA, as in California.com. And we'll find on our website, you will find just a ton of information. It's always updated, and there's a lot of relevant information. And I encourage people to go there if they're trying to research a topic that has anything to do with COVID, the masks, the testing, anything to do with persons with disabilities. We have information on that. The gender issue. We didn't really get into all of that, but that is something that impacts those with disabilities quite a bit, because there's a lot of, I would say, peer pressure for this particular population, especially a certain kind of person in this kind of population that is usually less impacted by special needs, but more vulnerable to peer pressure and whatnot, because a lot of this has been built around kind of a probably get in trouble for this, but social contagion. So there's a lot of peer pressure, and I feel like with many in our world. So many with those with disabilities. So it's an area that has impacted, I think, a lot of those families. So I think it's important to get that information on there and out there for families to have a different perspective, because many of just like on the vaccine topic, us being the only disability organization, we're kind of the only disability organization, at least that I've seen so far, that has a different take on this topic than other organizations. And what I mean by that is there's more so the thought of, we'll just accept it, and that's just the way it is, rather than trying to look into, should we just be handing over the rights to those that are minors to make these decisions of getting on, for instance, hormone blockers and all these kinds of things. Oh my gosh, Karen, you wanted to end on a nice note, and then I open up the can of worms to talk about all these other things. But anyways,
well, we will have to bring you back because this is a very hot issue, and not a lot of people know how it affects children with special needs, because we have children, and the fight for our children is very important, and we can get really tunnel vision when we're advocating, that we forget to see the other perspectives. And I think this is something that not a lot of people are aware of, and that's very important, right? Because it's children that, like you said, they're easily peer pressured, and it's horrible to say that, because they should be the ones that are being protected the most.
Right.
So we'll definitely have to bring you back and talk about that.
Yes.
But to really end on a good note, make sure that you follow Educate.Advocate on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter, and you check out their website and share their website with anybody that may need these resources, which is Educate.Advocate.ca.com.
Yes.
Yes, and we'll link everything below. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and until next time, please make sure that you continue to stand up, because nothing will change until we stand up, California. Thank you guys.